All right, let's get into NHL news, right? And we talked a little bit about Sammy Blais going on waivers today. But how about all these rumors surrounding Robert Thomas and the St. Louis Blues? And this has been out there for a while. I know Eric Macramella over the weekend put out a post saying, "Would you trade Michael Hage for Robert Thomas?" And I quote tweeted, "Easily yes."
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of Montreal Canadiens fans were pretty angry with me for saying that it was an easy yes. I mean, I like it's nothing against Michael Hage as a prospect, but if you look at what Robert Thomas is, I mean, that is like the best case scenario for Michael Hage, and probably unlikely that he becomes as good a player. Not to say he's not going to be a good player or a strong offensive driver for the Canadiens, but Robert Thomas is a 90-point player. Like, come on, guys. Like, what are we talking about here? Now, do the Canadiens, I think the question is, have enough? Because it's not just going to be Michael Hage. It's going to be Michael Hage plus. And you're talking about like Michael Hage, Caden Gooley, and a first-round pick to make that trade happen. And if you're even going to do that, which now I'm more hesitant because you're not talking about Hage anymore, do you have enough cap space moving forward to have Hage, to have the Hudson contract kicking in next year, to have enough money for Ivan Demidov, and to have enough money to make another move down the road if you want to add to the group once again? So it's more complicated, I think, than just Hage for Robert Thomas, because I think that's an easy yes if the Montreal Canadiens were proposed that and all things were created equal. But if you look around the National Hockey League right now, St. Louis is going to make this trade. How is St. Louis going to make themselves a better team moving forward, trading a player where there's no way they can get equal value for?
I think I saw Nick Kyprios throwing this out there on social media, or maybe not on social media. Someone might have just quote tweeted something from his radio show, but that apparently the ask right now is the equivalent of what would be 3 top 15 picks. You know, so I guess either players who are deemed to be top 15 picks in their draft year or were drafted there, or teams that are going to be giving away first-round assets. I think the thing that you're going to see, the more and more that people suggest Michael Hage, and I'm just saying this as one of the people who kind of feels this way, is there is a soft spot for him because of the story. Because of the Michael Hage story, his parents being from here, him speaking French, growing up a Habs fan. I think people want to see that story play out here in Montreal. So I think that's why anytime you bring up Michael Hage in any kind of trade discussion, people are going to immediately push back because they want to see that story. They want to see him at the Bell Center on the ice when the national anthem is singing, with tears streaming down his face, that he's finally realized his dream of playing for the Montreal Canadiens. That's the first thing. The other thing is general managers don't think like that. So,
I was going to say, like, I like the romanticism behind
That's right.
what you're saying, John, but this is professional
I
sports.
understand. So
This is a business.
Correct. This is the other thing. Now, I do think the fact that Michael Hage is very cheap right now, and what you said about the picks that the amount of money that you have to add into the salary cap for the Canadiens to make a player like Robert Thomas work, I think that does become problematic. I mean, let's be honest. The Canadiens, what we've seen from them in terms of how they've handled Juraj Slafkovsky and how they handled Lane Hudson, is you are likely going to see at some point next year a enormous extension for one Ivan Demidov. Like, let's not even think about the other guys. Like, Ivan Demidov is going to get whatever the hell Ivan Demidov wants. He looks like he is going to be the star of this team for 15 years or so. So he's going to get whatever he wants. And so, yes, this does become a little bit more problematic. So I've always been on the side of keeping Michael Hage and seeing if he can be that center that the Canadiens need, because it's just cost effective. But Robert Thomas would be great. I just don't think Robert Thomas makes a ton of sense for the Canadiens in terms of the assets you'd have to give up to get him. That's all it comes down to.
I mean, if you have Robert Thomas and Nick Suzuki as your 1-2 punch down the middle, you are the Boston Bruins when they had Bergeron and Krejci.
Maybe better. Robert Thomas probably a better player than David Krejci, no?
David Krejci, I think, was one of the most underrated.
Very underrated, but I think Robert
Thomas
is a very underrated player as well.
I agree. I'm a big fan of Robert Thomas.
So, yes, if you had 2-point-a-game centermen for the Canadiens, like who's complaining about that? No one would be complaining about that. But the cost would be, I think, so punitive for the Canadiens, who I still think need to make... I think the Canadiens probably still need to make 2 big trades before they're in their cup window. And if you go kind of all in on trying to get Robert Thomas out of St. Louis, what does that leave you left over for trying to make that other deal, wherever it is that you think it's going to have to be made for the Canadiens?
Well, that's the thing, right? If you're making big moves, and you talk about the romantic side of the Michael Hage draft selection and what a great thing it would be if he can make his NHL debut at some point with the Canadiens, and I think it's probably going to happen this year.
Mm-hmm.
And you might still get that
this
moment.
year.
Yeah, I
think so?
I think it's going to happen this year.
Wow.
And you might get that moment, John. But at the same time, when you are building like the Canadiens are building, and you want to make a big move, you have to at some point part with top prospects.
Yes.
This is what it takes to get a deal done.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, it's the Russian kid and Hage. Those are your top prospects.
Right.
Reinbacher, you're not moving on from, because if you're selling him right now, you're probably selling him at a low. Right? His stock isn't exactly high right now. That's not me talking about the decision to pick him. It's not me talking about how good I think he's going to be. Because of the injuries and because he's been hampered in his development, the stock would be low on him if they tried to trade him. The guys that are going to get traction are the guys that I mentioned, right? And people want prospects. They rather prospects than draft picks, because prospects are that much closer to the NHL. And the other guys that are here, right, it's not like you're trading any of them. Like, I don't think you're trading Oliver Kapanen, and you're definitely not trading Ivan Demidov or Lane Hudson or any of the guys that are blossoming into star players now.
Well, this would be my point, is that that's why I would prefer to play this out. I don't think Robert Thomas is the ideal player for the Canadiens, because, number one, he and Nick Suzuki are very similar players. They're great players, but they're very similar players. Both right-handed as well. Neither one of them particularly huge players, like big players. I think the Canadiens still would like to have that big centerman wherever it is. And this is the whole thing, because this has been my kind of argument since essentially that Noah Dobson deal, which I couldn't be more in favor for the Canadiens, is when the right player comes around, have the ammo to make that player your guy. To me personally, and I know he's not at the same level of Robert Thomas, but we've heard that the LA Kings are at least considering, this kind of rebuild, retool. We don't know what we're going to do here. This doesn't make a whole lot of sense, the direction we're going, kind of thing. Quinton Byfield ever became moderately available, I would rather the Canadiens go after Quinton Byfield than Robert Thomas, even though Robert Thomas right now is the better player. I just think Quinton Byfield is a different player. He's a left-handed centerman. He's 6'4". You just want a little bit of diversity in what you want up there. So when the right player, in my mind, comes around, the Canadiens can throw multiple first-round picks. Maybe Michael Hage, maybe Zurovsky, maybe Reinbacher, maybe a roster player like a Caden Gooley or an Oliver Kapanen. When you have that ready to go in the chamber for when that player gets there, then you go all in. And I just don't think Robert Thomas is a all-in player for me personally, even though he's a great player. I just don't think it makes a ton of sense for the Canadiens, especially at the cost that it would be, not just in terms of the assets, but the amount of money he makes.
I disagree. I think I move heaven and earth to acquire this player because he fits the timeline perfectly for the Canadiens as well. So I think that's an aspect that may be getting overlooked. Same age range as Nick Suzuki, signed until 2030, 2031 at a very digestible cap hit for what he brings to the table. So I don't think having two players like Nick Suzuki is not ideal. I think that actually is ideal. And yeah, maybe one of them would have to be playing a lesser role than they would if they were the number one center. But this is the kind of player that you need. There is a hole in that top six right now, and I think Robert Thomas fills that more than adequately. And you're probably deeper up the middle than 90% of the teams in the National Hockey League if you swing a move like this. So, again, I would move whatever it takes. Anyone but Jacob Fowler to get this move done. And I don't know what the cost would be. I don't know if it's Hage or Zurovsky or if it's Hage and Zurovsky. But I do it because you're hoping that Hage and Zurovsky become players similar to what Robert Thomas is. So why not trade for the finished product?
So it's $8.125 million for the next 6 years. for Robert Thomas. And it's just because I happen to be doing this because everyone's like, oh, Patrick Laine comes off the books. It's no problem. The Canadiens are going to have $8.7 million to spend at least on top of the cap going up this year. Well, you have RFAs and Kirby Dach, Zach Bolduc, and Arbor Xhekaj. That's likely all of the Patrick Laine money going towards re-signing those three players.
And Hudson's still getting paid only one.
That's right. And Hudson's going to be getting $8.85 million.
He's going from 1 to 8.5.
That's right. And look, I do know, you have Brendan Gallagher and Philip Deneau and Josh Anderson coming off the books.
Yeah, but then what about Demidov's contract?
This is it. So, this is the whole thing, is that you need to, and I'm sure, the Canadiens are looking at this that way, but how do you do this? How do you make this happen? That's my whole point about playing it out with Michael Hage. See if Michael Hage can be the player you think that he can be. I don't even know we still don't know if he's going to be a winger or a center at the NHL level. We still don't know. No one knows. So I don't see the harm in the Canadiens playing this out. Do you think Michael Hage is going to be playing in the National Hockey League next year?
Yes.
I struggle to see where. I just don't know. With Deneau here for another year, I struggle to see where Michael Hage plays on this team next year, personally.
I mean, I don't think he necessarily has to be playing center.
Right, but even not on
when you bring up the centers, sure,
but not even center. You have, if you're just looking at wingers, you've got Newhook, Dach, Demidov, Slavkovsky, Caulfield. You have Gallagher and Anderson still here. You're gonna have Zach Bolduc here. So I'm already at 8. Alex Newhook. Didn't even have Newhook here. So you already have all of the wingers already set. So I just don't see where he starts the season in Montreal. Can he play in Montreal?
We go back. This is where the Texier signing, when they did it, really caught me off guard.
Didn't even think about Texier.
That surprised me.
So
right?
why not again?
And do you not think with the final year, we talked about things being cutthroat in the National Hockey League professional sports. You don't think the Canadiens look at buying out Brendan Gallagher in the summer?
I don't think so.
The only reason you don't buy him out is because,
sentimentality.
But that's not a reason to keep a player under contract.
But
Sorry.
Teams do that. That's going to happen. I think they're going to play it out with Brendan Gallagher. I think there might have to be a very harsh conversation with Brendan Gallagher in the summer. And by the way, Brendan Gallagher turning back the hands of time last night. What a goal.
Yeah, way to go, Quinn Hughes.
Yeah,
Can't wait to see you defend for Team USA.
I did enjoy Montreal Canadiens fans immediately hopping upon Quinn Hughes. Not great on the other goal either.
I would love to.
2 of the 3 Canadiens goals, Quinn Hughes was kind of.
I would love to see Bill Guerin's face as he gets walked by Brendan Gallagher.
That's right. But yeah, this is the whole thing. Is this jigsaw becomes a little bit more complicated after the season. When you have a complicated jigsaw, what's really great is being able to have cost-effective, talented players. And Michael Hage is a cost-effective, talented asset for the Canadiens. I just don't understand right now. Again, in 2 years, I'm with you guys. I'm with you, Pete, in terms of whoever Robert Thomas is at that time, who just happens to become available, and the Canadiens are like, yeah, we need that guy. I totally understand, but I still don't think that the championship or cup window has opened for the Canadiens, so slow play this on Michael Hage, and maybe he could be the answer that you want at the 2C position.
You bring up a lot of players that are under contract that would get in the way of Hage playing next year. Mm-hmm. There's this thing called trades, right?
Yeah.
I think the Canadiens have said in the past, if a young player forces their hand, they will make room for that player.
I would ask the question then. I know that the people have said, and it's not just this administration who said it. It was Mark Bergevin who said the same thing. When has that ever happened? I'm genuinely thinking that they always say it. Oh, we'll make room for you. We'll make room for you if you force our hand. We'll make room for you. I cannot remember a time that the Canadiens actually did this.
I know it's not going to be fair, John.
Yeah,
but with the current team, which player has had a roadblock placed in front of them with this administration?
Yeah, you're probably looking at guys who are further down the depth chart.
Engstrom, maybe.
Owen Beck, maybe.
Yeah, but
even then it was Kapanen.
And he's been given chances.
Even then it was Oliver Kapanen. I think he's looked good also. But yeah, I don't want to hear this anymore because that's not the way that the real world works. It's a nice thing to say. But when you have it's the same reason why, when a guy plays really good in training camp, and it's like, oh, you need to bring up the young guy, almost inevitably the general manager or someone around the general manager, there's something leaked being like, well, he doesn't need waivers. It makes our lives a lot easier. We don't need waivers to send him down. So all of this forcing the hand would be a point-a-game player or something like that. That would be forcing the hand. I don't think that veterans get forced out in the National Hockey League as much, at least with the Montreal Canadiens, because some guy goes on a 10-game point streak or something like that, and they're like, well, we got to clear this guy out of here. I just don't think that is real.
I'll tell you, the one guy I don't see how he fits is Doc.
Yeah.
With the RFA status, with the 3 and change he already makes, with the injuries that he has suffered, and the fact that where do you think he plays?
He plays with Caulfield and Suzuki.
Right now.
I think the only way that he plays is with Caulfield and Suzuki.
When the Canadiens are fully healthy, though, where does he play?
With Caulfield.
You think he's going to stay with those guys?
That's right.
I think it's questionable at best. But let's be honest. When the Canadiens traded to acquire Kirby Dach, the idea was not for him to be a first-line winger with Caulfield and Suzuki. The idea was for him to be the Robert Thomas player that we're talking about right now, or actually more of a comparable probably to Quinton Byfield, who you mentioned.
Yeah, but I mean, what's the problem about him being up there and he's making $3.5 million?
Well, I mean,
playing on the top line, making $3.5 million.
Again, you have another contract to work out with him, and is he an ideal first-line player to play with those two? No, and you can't rely on him being healthy.
No, but again, this is the beauty of it is that Kirby Dach's 24 years old now. He becomes 25. A UFA, so he becomes a UFA at 27. You could easily sign a very cheap, very cost-effective 2-year deal that walks him right up to free agency if you're the Canadiens this year, because Kirby Dach has no leverage.
Yeah, but what I'm telling you is, if I deem that Michael Hage is ready for the NHL, and I can trade that player this summer, Kirby Dach, I'm going to do it.
What are you trading Kirby Dach for?
I don't care right now. I'll take pennies on the dollar.
But we're talking pennies on the dollar. Kirby Dach for a 3rd-round pick. Is that what this Montreal Canadiens administration sounds like they would do?
I don't know. I don't know what they're.
I would be shocked.
But what are you going to do?
This is a management team who kept Caden Primo on the team for a year.
I understand.
So they wouldn't lose him on waivers.
But what are you going to do? You're going to pay him $4 million to play 20 games?
But again, this is the point: is that
if
they were in a championship window, then I would agree with you. There's no point.
But
they're not.
But you're still paying the guy $4 million to play 20 games.
You're going to pay him anyways. Where's he going to go? He's an RFA this year. He's not a UFA. He's coming back to the Montreal Canadiens. I don't understand.
You don't think you trade him?
No.
Why not?
Because you don't win that trade. There's no way you win that trade.
But if he plays 20 games next year, I think anything that you would acquire, you win the trade.
A 3rd-round pick.
I think you win the trade.
I think that would be ludicrous.
He doesn't play.
I understand he doesn't play, but the whole point is LTIR $4 million, and now Alex Newhook is playing with Suzuki and Caulfield.
I'll tell you this, John. I'm happy you're not in charge of my money.
I think that this is 100% when you have $95 or $105 million, re-signing Kirby Dach to $3.5 million extension for 2 years, praying again that he stays healthy. I don't think is a problem for the Canadiens.
If I'm looking to make my team as good as possible, I'd rather clear up a spot on the roster.
A guy who could play in the top 6, who's 6'4", who, yes, gets injured a lot, is going to be less beneficial than a 3rd-round pick. That's what you're saying to me.
I'm saying if I think that Hage is ready to play in a top 6 role, I'd rather move the other player to make room for Hage, because that's the player I'd rather put in that role.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't even think on the top line Kirby Dach is going to be that impactful.
Well, he had a goal yesterday.
I know. Texia had a hat trick on that line.
Had a goal. No, he didn't have a goal. Had an assist the other night.
Yeah, he's played okay.
He's getting some points.
Texia's played okay with those guys too.
Sure. This is the beauty of having a second line that seems to be rolling.
I don't know. I think you're a little bit higher on Kirby Dach than maybe I am.
I'm not higher. I'm looking at it with eyes wide open that anyone who complains about Kirby Dach, he's an RFA who's not going anywhere. He has little to no trade value. He is 6'4". The Canadiens have the hammer in the negotiations in all ways this summer.
Right.
I see no reason why you're moving Kirby Dach to the Calgary Flames for whatever the hell it is. I see no reason how that makes you a better hockey team in the present.